Public meeting. Thanks for joining us today. If everybody wants to rise and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have. Okay, she's moving stuff on me here. We have a fairly full agenda items today, and it's Commissioner Weber is his wife fell and broke her arm. She's having some surgery today, so he won't be with us today. He was yesterday. He's back in the office. I would let's entertain a motion on the minutes. Mr. Mortensen.
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the minutes of the activities last week and I moved to approve those minutes.
Any questions on the minutes? I don't see any, don't see any hands. Okay. I would entertain a motion for approval. Did you already do that? Sorry. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Trying to juggle with my screen. It doesn't work. We have a list of consent agenda items today. I'm going to because we haven't had the chance to talk about item number one. Marin had some issues at home yesterday and we didn't have a chance to, as commissioners, to talk with her about that. I'm going to move that from consent agenda to motion items. Give us a chance to discuss that further. I don't unless you have concerns with that. You're okay with that?
That's good.
Oh. Okay. The other things we have a bid award approval to several for rock, Gardner Rock, L-Rock Industries, Harold Sorensen Trucking, and Dahl and Son. And basically, when you look through the bid, a lot of it has to do with different sizes and stuff, hence the different companies. Bid award to Lakeside for asphalt materials. These first two are both for the period of May of 2023 through April of 2024 so the next year. Contract extension with Longview Auto and Tire. We've talked about that in the past. They handle overflow maintenance and repair services on our stuff when we run out of time to do it. Interlocal agreement with the City of Longview for joint bidding on some public works projects. That's pretty normal. We do a lot of joint bidding with different folks. A Perpetual right-of-way and utility easement on approval from Weyerhaeuser Timber for Holdings on Oswalt Lane. This is off of Delameter. It's a small dead end thing. At the end of it, it's from what if I remember right from Susan yesterday, it's mainly Weyerhaeuser and Sierra Pacific. There is two private landowners back in there, and they are in approval of this. It provides a turnaround lane at the end of it. We completed work over at the Cowlitz County Event Center in the arena, some fire protection updates. That was a contract for $87,756.70, and that's been completed. So completion letter for that. Contract extension for Quigg Brothers on the Ostrander Road Culvert replacement project that we've been talking about the last few weeks. And an affidavit for resume posting for April of 2023. Resolutions. We have a resolution for County Road Project number 803 for the 46th Avenue Reconstruction Project to design and construct a new roadway system. This is in conjunction with the City of Longview. It's really a much bigger contract. We just have a small portion of that. This is off of 46th Avenue as you head to Robert Gray School. I forget that project in total is in the low millions. I forget what it was, but our portion of it, you can see, is pretty small, 67,500 that we're doing with that. And the last two, these are culvert replacements, one on Kalama River Road and 750. Well, it looks like they're both on Kalama River Road. And these are ones that if we normally build these out, they're within the scope and the time of our people doing the projects. So the cost on these, you see, in the first one is 160,000. The second one is 180,000. Roughly, if we bid those out, it's about 300,000 a piece. So we're getting, because we have the time and it's within the scope of our people doing it, that we're saving some dollars on that. And one of them, and I don't remember which one, but one of them we got, it's a salmon habitat deal, but there's another blockage not that far up. So we got a waiver, and so we probably want to get that in place before they change their mind. And then correspondence, we received a letter from a Federal Energy Regulation Commission. They send us a letter acknowledging usually what information we send them that they ask. And vouchers in the amount of $1,892,705.54. Any questions on the agenda items?
I have a comment on
Yes.
item number 7. This is just a preview. Turns out that part of the fire protection system is not only the main distribution line, but it's the sprinkler heads. And they look like they're going to need to be replaced. They have to hold, otherwise we leak. And there are half a dozen or so now that are leaking. And anyhow, you should see sometime in the future a contract or call for bids on that.
Okay.
And the tune would be about $40,000 or so. So it's non-trivial.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Let me check if I have any. I don't see any hands raised. I would call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as amended by you, putting item 1 up for the motion agenda and all the expense vouchers.
Last chance for comments. Seeing none, I would call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda passes. Oh, I had a note here before I get into motion items, because I don't think this will take very long. Carolyn, I know you had a quick comment you wanted to make. You want to do that?
Yes, I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm in the position again, the Cowlitz County Auditor's Office is seeking interested persons to participate in an against committee. That's one of my statutory duties when a jurisdiction fails to appoint a for or against committee in the local voters pamphlet. I need to publicize that. And I've had a lot of success by attending these meetings. So I want to say thank you. This particular committee would be for the Fire 5 permanent levee lid lift. So in the primary, Fire 5 has a resolution submitted and they're asking to lift the levy rate to $1.35 with a, let me make sure I get this right, with an annual inflation adjustment not to exceed 6% for the 5 succeeding years. They appointed a for committee, but not an against committee. So it's important that voters have equal representation. So if anybody is interested, please contact me or the elections office. Hopefully by tomorrow. Statements are due Friday, but we absolutely can extend the deadline if we have interested persons to serve. And you should know that Fire 5 is a very large district. It encompasses all of Kalama, most of the Carrolls, Rose Valley area, Tunstall precinct. It's a very, very large fire district.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Carolyn.
If I may?
Yes.
It is a large area, which has a different set of expense than, say, a fire district inside a municipality. Also, would you tell us, I think the increase was from under $1 to $1.35?
Yeah, it's wanting to raise the property tax levy rate to $1.35 per 1,000 of assessed valuation. And again, this is new verbiage with an annual inflationary adjustment not to exceed 6% for the 5 succeeding years. So fire districts are running new levies lately. They're calling them permanent levy lid lifts, but I don't think that that is something they can do in statute. I think that they're held to this 6-year limit. So they're doing one levy so that they don't have to run this levy over and over, raising it to $1.35, and then with inflationary adjustments for the succeeding 5 years.
My poor ears heard 16, not succeeding.
Succeeding, yeah. So I think they're bound to a 6-year limit for these.
Okay, and you didn't call out the number that they begin with or the levy? It's 90 something?
It's over $1, but I'm not sure that it could be. I didn't look at their last levy that they ran. They could be at $1.15. I'm not sure. I don't have that off the top of my head.
I think it's under $1. I remember seeing it, but so it's a fairly substantial increase, and the 6% would apply for only the following 5 years.
On top of the $1.35, the 6% on top of the $1.35. So like I say, if there's anybody interested in participating, I'm happy to provide all of that information. I'll look into that further and get more information.
Did they give a formula for the application of the
So
CPI?
they actually work with the assessor's office in determining their levy amounts. So this is another one of those issues where people kind of ping pong, even districts kind of ping pong between assessor, auditor, and treasurer, because certain things touch certain offices.
That's perfectly clear, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you again.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Carol.
thank you, Carolyn. Okay, we'll get into motion items. We'll start with the one we
You've got a
said.
hand up?
Yeah, and
Oh,
she's probably to speak to the, I'm assuming, Marin, that's you, Cowlitz County Corrections?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can.
Not
So
sure why I didn't get switched over so my camera's on, but here I am. Oh, here we go.
we pulled that first one and put it into agenda items because we just hadn't had the chance to talk. So maybe you want to brief us on that request for proposal.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Marin Fox, Director of Corrections. Good morning. This is a request to issue an RFP for a program we had in place for many years, the DUI education program. It's ran as part of our probation department and is used as part of sentencing for DUI offenders. It's typically part of their probation, an element of their probation that they're required to do. It's an educational program. We're seeking a facilitator to coordinate that program for us. As I said, it's something we've been doing for many years. We charge the offenders $100 to attend the class. So the revenue generated typically will pay or more than pay for the cost for the facilitator. It was discontinued due to all of the COVID restrictions in 2020. So we're just looking to restart it.
And in your note, it said usually it looks like they meet about once a month and usually about 20 attendees.
That's correct.
And
Held at the boathouse. They bring in prosecuting attorney, DOL, victims to talk, and the nurses from the emergency room to talk about kind of the overall impact of DUI to serve as education and to encourage offenders to make better choices.
and in the past, the fee they're required to pay to get in that is paid for the facilitator. So it's
Correct. Yeah,
the county's not kicking
that's
anything
correct.
in. Okay.
So I'm going to sound like a Neanderthal, but let's see. How many people don't know that if you drink alcohol, you get drunk? And how many people know they shouldn't drive while they're drunk? And so if anything, I'm objecting to the term education. I don't know anybody who doesn't know what I just said. So trying to set up a whole organization or eventually this is going to cost the taxpayer is what I'm saying. I've never seen anything that comes up that starts out as education and doesn't end up with an expense. Pretty simple.
How would it cost the taxpayers?
I beg your pardon?
How would you anticipate that it will cost the taxpayers money?
Well, for one thing, there's the court time involved and the staff involved to administer that. That's probably sunk cost now, but I don't know if that'll materialize in anything. Like I said, it may seem innocent today. Tomorrow, these things tend to take a life of their own. I'd probably go along if it didn't say education, but because like I said, I don't think I know anybody who's ignorant about alcohol.
Understood.
Is this an option when a judge talks with the offender that is it a conversation he has with them and it says, if you take this class, we'll reduce jail time? Is that what I'm?
It can be. It's typically part of a DUI sentencing. So it can be in lieu of jail time or in addition to jail time. It's a condition of probation. So if they do not complete this program, then they would be in violation of their probation conditions. It is something the district court judges order.
See, in that case, if I may say, I look around and see all these special moves we take, the courts, and I don't know that is the equal application of justice. If I'm a real smooth talker and so forth, even though I have a violation, I'm going to get a different treatment than another individual. And I'm a little bit on the leery side of those special things. That's a very clear example here.
Pre-COVID, Arn, this was typically part of every DUI. Almost every DUI conviction was required to do this. So it was
Understood.
an important element. It wasn't this person with a better attorney versus this person without a better attorney. It was typically the standard, a part of a standard DUI conviction, a sentence, and a condition of probation.
Yes, sir.
My name is Scott Olson, and I would just say you never know
Is it on?
Thank you. I'm Scott Olson, and I would say you never know who might be changed as a result of attending that. We don't know the road that particular person went on. Yes, they probably know that you drink too much, you get drunk and you can get in trouble or cause accidents and all that. That's fine, but it's also a point in time that if you give that opportunity, and I see no loss on this because they're paying for it, you know, and that's been in the place before. I don't know where to me, there's no question that this would be advantageous. I would be interested in knowing maybe some of the success stories or the benefit that maybe we've been able to track by having this as opposed to not having it in place. And I don't know if that can be done. It's a pretty big project, but anyhow, I would be very much and would encourage you to support something like this just because of the opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Did I hear you say that the cost is $100 and it would be paid by whoever takes the course?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay, what if they don't have $100 or they don't pay the $100?
They would not be signed up for the course unless they pay the $100.
So we've got people that have a problem with drinking. And we're saying that it's good to have them take this course. But yet you're saying if they don't have $100, they don't get to take the course.
They're required to come up with the fees for probation as well. There are fees that go alongside having been convicted of a crime. This is one of the fees that they're required to pay, and there are probation fees as well and court fees.
Do we have an idea of what percentage of the people do not have the money for something like this?
As I said, it was discontinued in 2020, so that's something I'd have to go back and pull, but typically people are able to come up with the money to complete this. This is not, that is not something that the judge could order, I suppose, and I'm sure this happened, that the judge could order that they do not have to pay the fee and order us to waive the fee. But the typical and the standard is that you have to pay the fee to attend the class to help offset the cost of the class, so it is not an added expense for the county.
So, but if the judge waives the fee, then you've still got program cost, which means then the county has to pick up the money that they're not collecting.
I'm saying I'm sure that's happened. I don't think that would be the norm at all, but a judge could always waive the fees. But that has not been the norm in the past.
Okay, just a little follow-up on Scott's comments. If you do get that thing going again, I would think that we definitely need a good metric reporting system on the failures and the successes, and that needs to be published on a regular basis. So everybody has a good handle on just how successful that might be.
Hi, kind of piggybacking on what Larry was saying, if it hasn't been running for the last 3 years, is there a way you could look back before 2020 and see how many reoffenses there were with the people who attended versus how many reoffenses in the last 3 years when it wasn't? And if there's a difference in those numbers to see if it's worthwhile?
That is certainly something we could pull together. That's would be a large project, but if that is the will of the board, that is something we could pull together.
You've got a hand up?
I do. Darcy. You're on, showing you're on mute. There you go.
Hello, Darcy,
Yeah.
we can't hear anything.
And not coming through. Still not coming through, Darcy. I don't know what. Okay. I don't know why it's not working, but anyway. I don't know where that's coming from.
Smoke signals.
I don't know, Darcy. It's just not coming through. Go ahead.
That's Morse code.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned the term big effort or large effort or something like that. If you would make the data available publicly, we've got people that could go through that data pretty quickly and probably come up with your report for you.
Any other questions?
Let me make another comment. We're in a society now where we've made a lot of excuses for people's behavior. None of us that I know of are comfortable thinking that we can go into a store, that someone can go into a store and walk out and not being detained. We're uncomfortable that the police cannot pursue. There are always reasons why we shouldn't hold people accountable. And I don't think it's useful for us to be permissive or even apologetic. It's well known that Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't cost anything, but it's successful because finally somebody wants to do something about themselves. This kind of program, again, we have to look at the holistics of it, and that's where I'm concerned. If I may suggest, Mr. Chairman, that we push this on till next week when Dennis is on, unless I don't want to be the veto here, depending on how you feel about this. And if we do go ahead, I don't want it to be assumed that I would accept a proposal. I mean, I'm always interested in the data and what does it really cost, some analysis, but I've crossed that line in the past and I've regretted doing so. By that, I mean, I've said, okay, let's find out the data. And then it turns out that, well, you voted that way back then, so you have to vote this way now. And I don't want to be caught in that trap again.
Would you like to make a motion to table it to next week?
Yeah, is tabling the right term? But I'd like to, before I do that, are you interested are you a yes vote on this, basically?
I am, yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and do the table then. Mr. Chairman, I move that we table this item for presentation at a future meeting.
Okay. Any questions on that? Darcy did type in a question. Can county conduct the program rather than mandating the private business? Just a question. We'll try answer that by next week.
Thank you.
Mhm. Any other, okay?
Yeah, I did have one other comment. Aren't, you just mentioned AA. I just got done reading the autobiography of this guy, Bill Wilson, who actually was the founder of the AA. And I think, it just happens to be good timing on my part, but that is a volunteer organization that actually helps people as long as they want to help themselves. And I have no idea if there's there must be an AA organization around here somewhere that should be brought into this discussion. So I would highly encourage somebody to look into that option.
I think that's a good idea.
Any other questions? See none, I don't see hands. We'll call for a vote to table the item till next Tuesday. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks for hopping on, Marin.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, facilities maintenance.
Good morning, commissioners and members of the public. Savannah Clement with Public Services. Today I have an alternate bid award approval to present to you, which actually is a little bit different than how we've done it in the past. We went ahead and awarded a bid award to J.H. Kelly last fall for an HVAC replacement unit at the jail. We knew at that time that we had some heat coils that needed to be repaired and replaced. So we decided at that time to also include an alternate bid, assuming that those would need to be repaired once the work had begun. Turns out that the alternate bid for J.H. Kelly, which was the lowest bid, was approximately $305,000. Again, we did not award that at that time. It was for projected replacement. Once J.H. Kelly got in there and discovered the components that did need to be replaced, they actually provided us the bid of approximately, make sure I want to say this correctly with sales tax, $24,500 as opposed to the $305,000 that they thought it would cost. So we're looking at a cost of avoidance of about $280,000. Which is great. We're hoping that those heat recovery coils will be replaced at that $24,000 price, and we won't be back in front of you. So I'm asking today for the board to approve this alternate bid award of $24,427 to J.H. Kelly to replace these heat recovery coils.
Any questions?
Actually, you should all be thrilled. This is sort of an inverse change order. And rather than call it a what's the term you call it?
Alternate bid.
Alternate, it should just be an ancillary bid because it's not replacing, or is it? Anyhow, you're saving a lot of money. So
Yeah,
I'll stop there.
and thank you to J.H. Kelly for looking at it. I mean, they could have just gone with the bid and you're looking at it, right?
Correct.
So there's people out there that do things right. And we appreciate that.
And there were multiple bidders, so it
That's
was an
correct.
even playing field.
Yes.
Any questions? Call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the alternate bid award with J.H. Kelly as has been described.
Last chance. Seeing nobody approving, no hands, I would call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks,
Thank
Savannah.
Well, don't go away if you have good news like that. Oh,
Yeah.
Hey, let me make sure I do these in the right order. Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. So the next three items are all contracts with the County Road Administrative Board. The first one is for Cloverdale Road drainage. We are receiving $500,000 out of the Rural Arterial Trust Account, RATA, for replacement of a culvert at milepost 1.78. This culvert is undersized, and on larger storm events, it plugs up and floods the road. We're estimating that the project cost will be about $1 million, and of the million, CRAB is providing $500,000. So item number 16 is an agreement to authorize us to accept the $500,000 from CRAB.
Are all three the same?
All three are the same. The total project cost is different. This type of project, they're all culverts. CRAB will only fund up to $500,000. So these are three different culverts. We have Cloverdale. We have one out on Rose Valley Road, approximately milepost 11.8. That also plugs. And then on Powell, the intersection of Powell and Bond Road up in the Castle Rock area, that also floods frequently.
And would I be safe in saying that these have been on our project list? We've known about these and we're just, it's gotten around to the time where we can take care of them.
Yes, we've
Is that
gotten to
fair?
the point that they're frequently flooding, the culverts are starting to fail. This opportunity from CRAB is a newer opportunity. They used to just do the corridor projects, and now they're offering drainage funding. So these are ones that don't rank well on fish culverts. They're expensive, ranging from $600,000 to over $1 million for us to replace.
But we've known about them and set aside funds to make sure we could take care of all three of these.
Yes.
Yeah. What I'm getting at is we'll ask for comments, but maybe take all three of these as one because they're very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. I'm unabashedly an admirer of your efforts. And how do you happen to persuade them to fund all three?
So CRAB has a pot of money in this, what they call the RATA fund, the Rural Arterial Fund, and that is a competitive process. So it's every 2 years, they open up the competitive process and they have a cap, and every county can only get a certain amount from the RATA fund, but you do compete against others. So we typically get money from CRAB. It is set up to help fund the counties.
So in this case, we got all three. Did we?
We applied for 4.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll take back my compliment.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions from the audience? I don't see any hands. I'd entertain a motion for all three if we can.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve items 16, 17, and 18. All three are the culvert replacements that have been discussed.
Last chance for comments. Okay, I would call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All three pass.
Thank you.
Mhm. Building and planning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Director of Building and Planning. In front of you today is an interlocal agreement with Cowlitz Conservation District. And it is for the current period until June 30 for $50,000 for our remaining funds that we have available. The contract also includes from July 1st until June 30 of 2025. Us transferring money to the Cowlitz Conservation District for our voluntary stewardship program. We used to have an employee that did that work for us. The employee has left our department, and we look to partner with the Cowlitz Conservation District. There are, of the 39 counties, 37 of them, before we reached out, contracted and sent the money to the Cowlitz Conservation District for the VSP program. And so now we're 38 of 39 counties to do this. So I just asked that the board approve the interlocal agreement so we can work in partnership with them. The money comes to us and it would be pass-through money based on reimbursables for what they do for our county.
Do you want to explain a little bit what the conservation district does? for the county, for the audience a little bit?
They do a lot for our county. They also jointly do some stuff with Weyerhaeuser County and Pacific County as well. They do a lot of habitat restoration. They do critical area boundaries. They help homeowners build up embankments for different river projects. They do soil conservation. Trying to think of everything they do. I mean, they do a ton of stuff.
Yeah,
They are highly regarded. They have a great board of board that they work with. They have a lot of partnerships. Do you want to say anything about them? We've done several, we've partnered with them just as the county whole holistically, not through building and planning, but we did the Kalama River Road, Camp Kalama. They did a embankment built up and fixed some of their shoreline issues and some flooding issues. They're currently working, we partner with our Public Works Department. One of their employees is on their chair, and we do well, it's a fertilizer type
yeah.
application. Yeah, process. Thank you.
And I know they're working on where the Tower Road Bridge went out. They're
They
working
are.
on some restoration there on that wall. I just trying to give you a flavor. These are
They're
really
very-
all local people.
They're all local. They're a very small group, but their feelers are everywhere and they are always willing to help homeowners, businesses. It doesn't matter. County organizations, they're a value to our county.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Any questions on that? You really are an organization that does quite a bit for us. I had chance, I went in and sit in one of the meetings. We've gone to different things with them and gotten to know some of them there. And I think they're in the right place. They're doing the right things. So. Questions? I'm not seeing any. I don't see any hands. Call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the interlocal agreement with the Cowlitz Conservation District as has been discussed.
Okay. See nobody approach. No hands. I would call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Also aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner's office. Do you want to explain that a little bit? Kim's on? Okay. Kim.
I'm
She's
in
right
two
there.
places at once.
Oh, man, you're pulling that Carolyn thing.
Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, community. I'm Kim Hort, the IT director. I am asking the board to adopt a new policy for electronic signatures. We are, in a modern society where we're doing a lot of transactions virtually, and this policy addresses electronic signatures for elected officials, county staff to conduct business on behalf of the county.
This, you want to give a flavor like we were talking yesterday so they can understand the amount of paperwork that runs through our place?
Yeah, I'll give a brief description of our process. So currently the documents are loaded into electronically into Agenda Quigg, and then 2 copies are printed and sent to us. And I kind of brought an example of what we're used to seeing. It's about 300 to 500 sheets of paper we use each week. And they have to sign 2 copies of these, and then we upload them back into the computer where they originally came from. And we have to keep a copy of these because they're wet signatures, and that is how it has to be kept. So we store them, and we also store them electronically. And I have Bailey on here too. She can explain the process of sending it to the archives.
Okay.
Yeah, I can give a little example of our process right now for Back in January, I reached out to Washington State Archives just to see if the electronic signature would benefit us in terms of retention. And at the end of December of 2022, we took a bunch of banker boxes, had to label all the 500 each weekly records individually. The state archives had to come down here and pick them up. And that's because you guys sign them on a wet signature on a piece of paper. But if we move to the electronic signature, we can then build a process where we can electronically transfer those records to Washington State Archives. We would maintain them for the retention period that we have to respond to public records requests. But at that point, Washington State Archives would be responsible for them past the retention period. So it would be a better process in terms of us not keeping lots of sheets of paper.
We're in a system that's, you can tell that's like a weekly folder that commissioners get to sign and through, and then that paper goes different places and then goes up to archives eventually, and then they have to scan it and it goes in. It's just a really inefficient process. And I've had some experience with electronic signature in my previous place. And at first, I'll be honest with you, at first I was going, I don't know about this, but once we got into it, the benefits of it were so huge and just made life easier that I think this is a correct direction for us to take in the commissioner's office and become a little more efficient, and easier to catalog.
So I'm sure we're going to pass this. If I report somewhere through to the board, then will I be required to use electronic signature, or may I optionally use a wet signature?
The intent for the commissioner's office, we're working on replacing our current technology for agenda item submittals, where those would all be a workflow and electronic process. There's nothing in the policy dictating that we can't print a document off for circumstances. And the intent is to go electronic, but again, we're not restricting one way or the other.
Right. Okay. I think it'll be a very quick adoption of this because of all the other benefits. Now, if you're an elected and you've got your own department, you get to choose. You in IT are providing the tool with which to do the DocuSign, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah, that's a good point. The departments will make the ultimate decision if they want to do this.
yeah, I assume the board will put pressure on those who report to us to adopt this in practice.
Specifically for
Yeah.
the agenda submittals, yes.
Yeah.
There was another issue, but it escapes me.
Escaped you for a moment.
Yeah, it's
Any
I'll think about it in
Okay.
a moment.
Any questions from the audience on this process? I don't see any hands.
Oh, I remember. I always complain about government finding a good solution and with no holistic view deciding to pursue this grail and not understanding that it cost them 2 grails in order to get a single grail. So how much does this cost?
If we were to go forward with the agenda quick resolution, we got an updated quote about $9,000, which is to completely integrate and buy packets and licensing for county users. So I mean, it's not just specifically for the commissioner's office. This is a countywide licensing application and
Okay.
one-time fee to deploy for specifically into laserfish.
To whom do we pay this $9,000?
It goes to a company called Cities Digital. They're the company that licenses Laserfish.
Okay, and if it's appropriate, I think you have more experience than a lot of us. Have you ever had a false DocuSign?
I have not.
Okay, so.
And probably it's sometimes years go so fast. We're probably 2 to 3 years, and I don't recall one time where we had an issue of it not being the correct signature. You can build in almost any. They probably have a set minimum for what you need to identify who's signing, but you can make it stricter if you really want to. You can, and we did it on some documents that were, we felt more, there was just more, we didn't want to take, we'd make the requirement stricter on to verify that they were the right person signing that document. But
Yeah.
in the time, I don't recall any issue.
Yeah, I'm thinking people are very resourceful if it means a lot of money. And it's always nice to know whether you've got some, what kind of protections we have. You know, I'm confident that technology is a good thing, but even in the cybersecurity space, technology will beget antagonistic technology, which will keep the loop going. But ultimately, it's people and not being careful with what they do that ends up causing a problem. And here it's pretty easy when, well, anyhow, I'm just babbling along. I like it. Yeah. Oh, 9,000 per year? Or-
No, that's implementation cost.
Okay, and then there's an annual fee?
There is, and I would have to go back to my number because I don't have it off the top of my head. I apologize. I want to say it's $2,000, but I would have to confirm.
And that's based on the number of signatures you're gonna get?
Yeah, licensing packets.
So the way I would answer that then, it's such a minimal cost compared to the gain that we don't even
Correct.
examine it that closely.
Mhm.
Okay.
I was just curious if this would help, like our courthouse maybe move towards like electronic type of thing. I know we're one of the few courthouses in the state that you can't file electronically, and even like with the restaurants case, that really hindered our attorney's ability to deal with the courthouse because it has to be done in person.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be.
It would probably be available to them,
That'd
right?
be a door for them maybe to move that way, or.
Yeah. I'm sure we'd make it available if they wanted to use it. Here's one of the funny things that we found. State of Washington is a little bit odd. We couldn't use this when we were using titled documents. Titled documents had to be, State of Washington wouldn't take electronic signature. Oregon will, but when we did a car loan in the state of Washington, that title had to be a wet signature. So
Interesting.
I don't know if any of that kind of stuff applies to the courts, but I'm just telling you, the state of Washington has some
Right.
idiosyncrasies out there.
Right.
Yeah.
I think our attorney's in Bainbridge Island, but he was saying basically when he wants to file something, we have to go to the courthouse because there's no way to electronically do it. And he said we're like one of the only courthouses in the state where that's the situation. So.
Well, hopefully we can make that better.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
A question for the clerk of the board. Let's say this gets approved here today. How long is it going to take you to present us the documents in a DocuSign form?
We're still currently trying to transition over from Agenda Quick to Laserfish. And that's where all the routing needs to be. They're working on the routing and getting that process defined. So as soon as that gets done and we educate everybody about it, then we're going to roll it out. So hopefully I'm looking at IT. They're the ones that are holding the key to that.
So the guess is we're still a few months away.
Yes, and just to add some additional clarification, Agenda Quigg is a cloud-based solution that we use to submit our documents for board approval. By moving to a Laserfish, yes, there's costs to deploy and implement. There's staff time, like Kelly has alluded to, to develop the workflows, and then the technical staff to write the workflows. Once that's implemented, though, we will save about $10,000 a month for not subscription fees or for not having to pay subscription fees for the cloud hosted agenda
So Agenda Quick costs us 10,000 a month?
a year.
Okay. I see no more questions. I would call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the electronic signature policy as has been discussed.
Last chance. No hands. Let's call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
Thank you,
Thank you, Kim.
commissioners. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
And Bailey, I just want to thank the whole commissioner staff. Thank you.
They're working hard to bring the commissioners into the 20th century.
Yeah, I think they're way more unexpectedly excellent work. And I
Yeah.
mean unexpectedly, and just that isn't in your job description necessarily to improve things, but you are doing that.
Yeah. A couple updates before we open it up. Last week, we talked a little bit about, we had some no parking zones put in a different place, and there was a question that came up about a piece of property out in Kalama River Road. It was one that is in a no, you can't park or camp there, and it was asked if we would look at that and maybe reverse that decision. Well, our staff went out and took a look at that, and it's actually the piece of property, if we're on the right piece, and we believe we are the way it was explained, that's DNR property. It wasn't the county that instituted that. It was DNR that put up the signs to not park on that property. So we don't have the ability to change their wishes. But it wasn't something the county did.
If I could ask clarification, so the no parking was posted by the DNR?
By the DNR. It actually, Susan sent, and I didn't print a copy of the pictures, but sent one where you had to have their trail pass, and then there was another sign that said no overnight.
So it appeared to us last week in error, those two.
Right.
We had no jurisdiction over it in the first place.
No, this was a piece that wasn't on that presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Person from the community said, hey, there's a piece out in Kalama. Would you take a look at that?
Oh,
Assuming
yes,
that
thank you.
We had
Yeah,
done that. And so we did take a look at that, but it's not our property.
yeah, I confused it with the other two properties.
Right.
What was the outcome on that? We did not approve posting no parking there.
On the,
There were 7 requests for
yeah, and
parking, and
we took 2 out of those.
we took 2 out of those.
Right.
And I think that just ends there, right?
We did ask him if the sheriffs had better information to tell us
Right.
more activity was going than what we were aware of, but at this point in time, it felt like, and I think we both agreed, it felt like we were punishing the majority for
Yeah,
the actions of 1 or 2 people, and we decided not to do that. Okay.
I recall now, thank you.
Yeah. Other things to bring you up on, I was at and I bring this up because if you read it in the paper and stuff, and we've told you that our local, our sheriff and our local municipality is working on a drug ordinance because of the no fix on the Blake decision. And most of you know, I go to council meetings for the cities to just listen and understand where they're at. And I've been to two of them now where there's a drug ordinance that's been written and they're wanting to vote on these things. And last night that happened in Woodland, and it was being talked about, and I said, that's the first time I've seen it. So what I'm telling you, if you see that the cities are starting to adopt this, and I've told you that we're going to bring it to you and we're going to workshop and give you a chance to look it over, we're going to do that. We just have not seen that. We're not, at least I'm speaking for myself, and not eager to raise my hand until we get a chance to do what we told you we would do. And that's bring that forward and let you look at it. So you might see some stuff in the paper that some of the cities are starting to approve this, but it has not come before this board that I'm aware of. I have not seen it. I don't believe Commissioner Morton's has seen it. And until we do and you have a chance to look at it, we'll take no further action, or at least I will not.
Yeah, and when we finally do get to see it, it's going to be a topic for discussion. I'm without knowing what's in there, it's difficult to talk, but I can say that a synchronization is probably a useful thing. If we talked about it last time, if Cowlitz County is too permissive, it'll invite the wrong kinds of people into the county. I don't know what happens if municipality A is more permissive than municipality B. They're, I think, trying to avoid that by coming together with a common thing. If the county wants to be more strict, I'm not sure what our constraints are, but that's what we have the legal team for.
Yeah. So I just bring that up because if you read about it and you're saying, oh, Rick didn't tell us the truth. I am telling you, we will bring it. The other thing I wanted to point out, and you get two sheets over there every week. One is this weekly calendar, and one's the meeting calendar for today. Start paying attention to the weekly, because you'll see Kelly is starting to put upcoming workshops on here. And you'll see May 24th, we have the prosecutors and public defense in on the mental health tax. On May 31st, we have Office of Financial Management on budget policy. On June 7th, we have the sheriff's office in on the micro home community and mental health tax. So we're starting to get some of those done. The other day we talked about, we will have juvenile facilities come in, and we'll set a date for that. So start to pay attention to that. Kelly started to add that, and you'll have some stuff that maybe you want to attend and participate in. All in an effort to try and keep you informed. With that, do you have anything you want to touch on before we open it up?
Probably, but I don't remember.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, tomorrow we do have a Board of Health meeting at 1:30. It's a meeting they called, so it's specifically, I think its specific purpose tomorrow is to talk about future meeting dates being more frequent than what they have. So tomorrow at 1:30, there will be a Board of Health meeting. If you want to attend that and participate in that, that will be there. Okay. We'll open up to public comments. I was going to go through one of the city things where they talk about this and this and this. You got 3 minutes and you got to be polite and all that, but I thought you guys would shoot me. So we're just going to open it up.
He was only teasing.
Yeah. Anybody? Yeah.
Good morning, and again,
Morning.
thank you for allowing me to come and talk to you.
Sure.
I emailed Arn this morning a proposal that I was proposing for a resolution that the county adopt. And it has to do with the grand juries and the investigation of election crimes and organized crime and corruption. And if I may, I would like to read it into the record so that the audience understands why I'm here and what I'm trying to accomplish. That it reads the preamble.
If you would just move the mic from it, move it much closer to you. Like you see how I keep mine, yeah.
Okay, I'll try this. Over the past several decades, the people's domestic tranquility has been attacked to the point that people no longer have faith in their government. Several problems cause this state of our governmental affairs, but the most significant problem we can identify is that the members of the judicial branches have become more political than just. This is largely due to the fact that many members of the judicial branch have and are violating the separation of powers and have infiltrated our legislative and executive branches and created laws to protect and enhance their judicial fraud industry. This has caused public corruption and organized crime to run rampant throughout our state and our nation. The members of the judicial branch have finagled themselves into positions to be leading the organized crime and corruption by stealing the people's courts from them. This resolution is an attempt to right this ship and address the organized crime and corruption in a manner that restores the people's faith in their public officials. RCW 236-0105 grand jury means those 12 persons impaneled by a superior court to hear, examine, and investigate evidence concerning criminal activity and corruption. Clearly, the grand jury is the people's tool to investigate criminal activity and corruption. We are aware that multiple criminal complaints were filed alleging election crimes. We are also aware the prosecutors had a duty to present the criminal complaints to the proper jury as described in RCW 36-27-020 duties 9. That reads, the prosecuting attorney shall not present all violations of election laws which may come to the prosecutor's attorney's knowledge to the special consideration of the proper jury. We are also aware that of RCW 29A 84-720 officers violations generally that reads, every person charged with the performance of any duty under the provisions of any law of this state relating to elections, including primaries or the provisions of any charter or ordinance of any city or town of the state relating to elections, who willfully neglects or refuses to perform such duty, or who in the performance of such duty or in his or her official capacity knowingly or fraudulently violates any of the provisions of law relating to such duty is guilty of a Class C felony punishable under RCW 9A 2.20.021 and shall forfeit his or her office. We are also aware that Virginia Sjogren summoned a grand jury to investigate the alleged election crimes, and the judge and prosecutors violated their oaths of office and took actions to block her access to the grand jury investigation. We are also aware that Governor Inslee is a member of the judicial branch that is and has been violating the separation of powers. We are also aware that Attorney General Robert Ferguson violated his duties, oath of office, and RCW 29A.84.720 officers violations generally, when he failed to advise the local prosecutors of his or their duty to support the calling of grand jury investigations into the alleged election crimes. Therefore, we conclude that the members of our judicial branches are in a desperate position to cover up and conceal their ongoing criminal activity and corruption. And we need to take action to correct this situation. Our loyalties do not reside with corrupt or any corrupt public officials. Our loyalties reside with the people. We also conclude the only way to preserve the political power of the people is to allow the grand juries to investigate alleged election crimes. We also understand that our power as county commissioners is limited, but that we are not powerless against public corruption. Therefore, we resolve that due to the foregoing, we will strongly consider increasing the official bonds to the maximum allowed by law of any prosecutor in our county who fails to perform his or her duty described in RCW 36.27.020 duties 9 and RCW 29A 84.720 officers violations generally, and to increase the official bonds to the maximum allowed by law of any judge who takes any action to block a grand jury investigation into any alleged election crimes, as they would also be in violation of their oath of office, RCW 29A 84.720 officers violations generally, and complicit in the alleged criminal activity. Furthermore, if any judge in our county becomes aware that our local prosecutor has violated RCW 36.27.020 duties 9 and RCW 29.84.720 and has refused to summon a grand jury investigate into alleged election crimes and fails to appoint a special prosecutor to summon the proper jury, then the judge has become complicit with the prosecutor and has violated RCW 29A.84.720 officers violation generally. And we will be compelled to increase his or her official bond to the maximum allowed by law as described in RCW 42.08.080, who may bring action on bond, RCW 42.08.110, procedure when bond of county or township officer is insufficient, RCW 42.08.120 additional bond, and RCW 42.08.100 approval and filing. Thank you. Clearly my intent is to put the pressure on to clean up the judicial branch. The judicial branch is our problems. And most of us feel that we were powerless to do anything about it, but we're not powerless. A couple of things I would like to comment on. There's the bonds were established, and the ability to increase the bonds was established to be able to address some of this corruption and hold individual accountability, which is much different than the risk pool. The risk pool is a whole different design system that takes the liability and accountability away from a public official and places the wrongdoing actions of public officials, places that liability on the innocent taxpayers, because ultimately they have to pay the liabilities of the risk pool. The official bonds, on the other hand, puts that liability directly on those public officials. And this is why it's important to let those public officials in the manner of judges and prosecutors know that there's a tool out there to hold them personally accountable, and we need to take the power. I'm urging you guys to take the power to step up and consider adopting this resolution so that we can put the power on these judges to do the right thing. As last time I was here, there was comments made that the grand jury hasn't been caused for several decades in Washington state, rarely if ever caused. And that's the reason why we have so much corruption. The grand jury was designed to address that corruption. They have not been called. The people haven't been allowed to investigate it. And the corruption has ran rampant in Washington state. And it's a sad situation. We need to take charge. I'm urging you guys, I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate having the opportunity to come here. I can tell you for a fact that if you do adopt this resolution, that I will take it to most of the other counties in the state where I have allies that are supporting my position, and urge the other county commissioners to adopt a similar, if not the same resolution in their county so that you guys are not standalone and that we bring some of these grand jury investigations back to investigate some of this ongoing criminal activity and corruption within the government. And hopefully restore the people's faith in government in the process.
And obviously this is the first time we've really seen it, and we're not prepared, or at least I'm not, to take an action today. I am certainly willing to have a discussion about it, and I'd be interested in public comments on it, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'll probably get super tongue-tied, so I'll try and go from the top down. I want to thank you for all the work this represents. And I want to thank you the honor you give us that you presented here. And I know you don't have a lot of choice in getting a public hearing, if you will, but it's still a benefit to everyone. I've mentioned before that our judicial system is broken. We don't have justice, we have legality. And legality in a system that is defined by itself for itself, totally self-contained. You're not a member of the bar, you're out of luck. And your admission to the bar depends on whether you please those in charge of the bar. And on through the whole separation of powers, as you point out, it's basically all broken. And it's puzzled me forever why the clear language of the Constitution isn't honored. So we have plenty of examples here. So I don't even have to talk about any specific election alleged frauds or alleged this or that. I just have to say, what part of Article 1, Section 1 does the legislature and the governor not understand? Consent of the people. And I'm pretty sure they don't have consent of the people. Article 1, Section 24 shall not be infringed. That's pretty darn clear also. And it goes on and on. There's also the repertoire that you say here. Now, I've investigated, using the term loosely, why it is that we cannot have a grand jury. Somewhere, somehow, we allowed the people to get pushed into a corner so they cannot defend themselves. And you're right, the grand jury is how to go about it. In my inquiry, I'm told there's no way we can call a grand jury. The Superior Court has to call the grand jury. And I'm a little hazy on whether the prosecuting attorney can call a grand jury. But in any event, it's sort of like, this is going to sound awful, but it just comes off the top of my head. It's sort of like Al Capone heading up the untouchables. It's like, gee, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I would like to take this and try to craft it in a way that has the official language appearance. The form factor means something, but also maybe sift out anything that could be interpreted as the motives. That it's corrupt, in my view, is totally accurate description. Some people think it's corruption if somebody accepts $100 bribe, but there are many levels of corruption. So I want to take away words that can cause people to react negatively to it. I also want to maybe split it into a couple of entities. I don't know what it is we can actually do. I am in strong support of what you're trying to do. Trying to figure out how to do that within a system that doesn't want you to do that is the task at hand. And I don't know the answer to that. I'll stop at the moment while I try to.
I'd just like to respond to you, Arnie, a little bit on a couple of very important things. Our Constitution placed the power of the grand jury, the calling of the grand jury, into the judge's hands. But it's interesting to note that we actually have two constitutions in the state of Washington. The original constitution that was submitted to Congress, that was ratified by Congress, came out of Ephrata before the constitution that came out of the Washington State Constitution that came out of Olympia. That constitution that came out of Ephrata was presented to Congress, was ratified by Congress, and signed into effect. The Constitution that we were acting under here in the state of Washington was modified by attorneys, for attorneys, and that's the Constitution we are acting under and have been acting under since it was signed into effect by, I forget which president it was, shortly after the Civil War. But that Constitution was never ratified by Congress. You can go into the Library of Congress and you'll find two separate constitutions. And they are grossly different in state. So when you start referring to the Constitution, you should know, one, which Constitution you're going to refer to, and whether or not how much fraud is involved in Washington State, and how much fraud in Washington State are the courts allowing, because it's a tremendous amount, and it's a power struggle. It's without a doubt, it's power and money. And this is why the bonding, as I see it, your ability to increase the bonds, and the RCWs that I referred to in the chapter 42, that's your guys' power as commissioners to increase the bonds to sufficient amounts. And then what the idea behind this is to increase the bonds to the maximum allowable. In the state of Washington, I think it's $250,000. And I think that's in the RICO code, that you guys can increase those bonds if there's alleged or organized crime and corruption involved. And that'll place the bonding company to scrutinize the actions of the prosecutor and the judges, who I'm focused on, that are the problem.
I was going to ask you about this, but about the bonding. So in this last term, last statement, you said that would encourage greater scrutiny. Who will be doing the scrutiny?
The bonding company that will ultimately bond the judges or the prosecutors. If you ask to increase the bonds to these people that refuse to call the grand juries because they're in violation of officers' violations generally, you understand that law. Actually, I have 42 pages of laws, constitutional laws involving both the original Washington State Constitution and the one that was signed into effect, original one that was ratified by Congress, and I can provide those both to you. But I have the 42 pages of laws, and many of the laws are in violations, are being violated by the.
But if I may interrupt you, that's all good. But if I'm a bonding company, I'm going to say, clearly the state of Washington judicial system is in control of the whole thing, so I'm not at risk at all. You want to pay me extra to bond you to $250K? Sure, I'll do it, because I run no risk at all. In other words,
I think you'll be mistaken there. I think the bonding company will take the action to be on the safe side, and will be able and will request some asset liability of the public official that they're bonding, to be able to protect their bond in the situation. And And might point out that RCW 29A 84720 officers violation is a Class C felony, and they forfeited their office. And if you cite the laws that require the calling of the grand jury to investigate election crimes and the violation of this Class C felony, then I think the bonding company would look at it that the person, the prosecutor
No,
or
I
the judge
understand that. I'm
has
just,
already violated their,
yeah, I'm just
forfeited their
saying,
office.
if you and I were the ones deciding whether it's really a violation, that'd be something different than if it's the AG and the Supreme Court of Washington deciding, because they're going to decide this way and we're going to decide, well, I'll call it in the middle.
So what we have here, Arn, and I'm just playing the devil's advocate, we have at least one attorney in the state of Washington who has summoned the grand jury to investigate these kind of things. And I think if you take a position to encourage these grand jury investigation, I think that's clearly where we need to go to right this ship. Allow the people, I have faith in the people. The people aren't going to find some public official guilty of wrongdoing unless they find gross wrongdoing. The people are basically good people. A grand jury will be very accurate in their findings, I'm sure.
Understanding that, but we've got to get to a grand jury. I'm told I cannot do that.
So if you're encouraging it, the grand jury investigations here in your county, and we have brave attorneys that are willing to come and summon the grand jury to investigate it, then what we will have is ultimately, it will bring about the grand jury investigations, and it will be the most important thing to solve our problems that we're facing in society, because there's a tremendous amount of laws that are in our favor, the people's favor, to address these crimes, but the members of the judicial branch are standing in the way. So the only tool that I see that we have are you, as commissioners, and your ability to increase their bond to amount to where it motivates them to do the right thing. Now, in standalone, someone's got to take the stance, but I can guarantee you, I will go to Pacific County. I will go to Grace Harbor County. I will go to Jefferson. I have friends in all these counties that I talk about. I will go to Jefferson County. I'll go to Kalama County. I'll go to Mason County. I will go to Eastern Washington, and I will encourage the commissioners there to do the same thing, to take the stand, to right this problem with our judicial branches.
I think, well, I'll just offer where I would take it from there. Like I said, I'm not prepared to, I don't believe we're prepared to give an answer today, but what I will tell you is we'll definitely, it's not something that we'll put off on a shelf and just hope it goes away. We will look it over and we will give you an answer, even if it's one you don't want to hear.
Yeah, and feel free to call me and discuss it, and I'll make myself available as much as I'm a very, very busy person, but I'll make myself available and to come and discuss it as much as I can with you guys.
And I will echo what Arn says. I appreciate you coming in and presenting this to us. That's what these things are for, is we're here for you to come and tell us your concerns. And so we appreciate that.
Thank you. I'd like to make one closing comment that when Virginia Sjogren summoned her grand jury, and I think it was Franklin County, I don't know if it was Franklin or Grant County over in Eastern Washington, the prosecutor actually opposed it, and Attorney General Ferguson got in and opposed it, which is clearly a violation of the prosecutor's duties and a violation of Attorney General Ferguson's duties is to advise the prosecutor to go against his duties, because Attorney General Ferguson had a duty to advise the prosecutors on how to act. And surprisingly enough, they fought Virginia to block the grand jury there, as did Perkins Coie, came all the way from Washington DC to fight her at the legal representation for the Democratic Party and the current Biden administration. Now, when we have this kind of, this is why the grand jury is supposed to investigate this kind of corruption. See, and we had the judge with all the pressure from the prosecutor and the attorney general and Perkins Coie fold in that situation. That should not have happened. That judge should have called the grand jury the minute she summoned it. Well, we can't have, when these brave members of the Bar Association, clearly she stood up and went against the tide of the Bar Association. And when we have these brave members of the Bar Association stand up and trying to do what's right, follow the law. She cited the law, many of the laws I cited in here, many of the laws that I was referring to in my 44 pages of laws that all supported her actions, but they all acted criminal in the process. Basically are all in violation, officers violation generally. Currently, she's getting ready to go in front of the Court of Appeals over there. I don't know whether it's the 3rd District or something over there, the Court of Appeals over this. And again, Perkins Coie is coming from Washington, DC and asked to be involved in oral argument over there. So it's a very important thing, not only to the people of the county, but to the people of our state and our nation. It's an ongoing thing that we have a problem with, and the grand jury is the tool to address this. It's a tool that was written in the law. And when I referred to the definition of the grand jury to address criminal acts and corruption, corruption is not it's not a nice word, but that's what it was established to do.
Yeah, I think you made your point. I really want to hear from the other folks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just in response, as we the citizens, or at least I as one of the citizens, we appreciate this opportunity to present to you, the commissioners, and have this open mic. Unfortunately, we do not have an open mic with our county sheriff nor our county prosecutor. And unfortunately, in the last election, our prosecutor was unchallenged in that situation. I would certainly encourage you representing us to put this before them and get an honest opinion back, as stirring the pot a little bit now and seeing where we're going. Because we do have to stir the pot with our representatives, our sheriff, who is truly supposed to represent the law for each and every one of us, and our prosecutor that is supposed to represent all of us following the law also. And we know our state Supreme Court has skewed significantly under Ferguson's and Inslee's direction, representing us as citizens of this state and county.
So I'm just going to go along with Ron there. You know, it's a fact that, you know, and I come in here and say this all the time, we got to find a way to make our stand, you know, and this is right up that line, just like we have the gun ordinance. You know, now all the cities are having to create drug ordinances because the state is failing at, you know, basic law enforcement. So sometimes these things might seem maybe, you know, it's probably more than what you should have to do, really. But the fact is nobody else is going to do it. And so, you know, here we are. So if we don't stand up, again, I'm just repeating my words from over and over again, you know, who else is going to?
Anybody? I don't see any hands. Any final comments, Commissioner?
I'd like to see more people come up to speak. I'm looking for hands. I don't see any.
Tim,
As long as you don't repeat yourself.
I would just like to say that I filed multiple criminal complaints on the elections with your local prosecutor and your local sheriff, so they're aware that there were criminal complaints filed. They did not call the proper jury to investigate them, and they are in violation of officers' violations generally. So most likely they will not support what I'm trying to do here.
I'll try to be quick. Carolyn, I see you're still up there. Now, something that might just go right along with this, you know, because I know it's happened before. So last election, I was out ballot curing, helping the department out a little bit, plus our team, and found somebody, and they told me that they had, one of the guys that I found was actually, cheating, signing for other people. And so the elections department told me that they had passed that on to the prosecutor. So, and I know that from listening to Carol speak before, it's not a big thing here, but it happens that other people have been referred to the prosecutor. But then it seems like the prosecutor doesn't really do anything about this stuff. And so if Carolyn was there, she might be able to speak to that just for a minute. But, yeah, and it's not Carolyn's job to prosecute them. It's the prosecutor's job, but she tells the prosecutor. So how are we doing there on that one, Carolyn?
So I had to take a phone call and I'm just catching up to the tail end of this conversation. So forgive me if I missed something. I think I missed a big bulk of the former speaker. So yes, each even year election cycle, the state does a comparison of our voters that have voted compared to the other states that participate in ERIC, so that we can see how other states have voted, so that we're looking for double voting, people with name changes. We're identifying discrepancies and irregularities, and there are very few numbers identified in Cowlitz County, but they've been identified. And I have a role in statute. Tim's right. I have a role in statute. My job is to collect the facts, identify the voter, turn it over to the sheriff's office and the prosecuting attorney's office. Those cases have been well documented since, I believe, our first official notice was in 2016, where we had 4 cases. And you would have to contact the prosecuting attorney's office to see where they're at, because at the time, they, for whatever reason, again, you'd have to contact the prosecuting attorney's office. We did not see those progressing. So we continue to do our part and have every election since that time. Continue to turn those cases over to law enforcement, who gets frustrated because they don't see further action, legal action. And I kind of remind people that we need to do our part according to the law and fulfill our duties regardless of what happens. And the sheriff's office really does do an excellent job on following up and investigating these issues. And it's out of their hands as well. So I would encourage you to ask the PA to talk about the legalities of these cases, where they are, and why or why not they have not gone anywhere.
If I could,
Carolyn, go ahead.
if I could make a comment on that. To me, the vote is sacrosanct, and it can be violated any number of ways, including tough guys standing on the court steps or something like that. I'm unaware of any serious attempt to support the sanctity of the ballot. And the way you do that is you prosecute people who cross a line. And of course, there are always reasons, my Uncle Sam didn't tell me that I couldn't do that, or I mistakenly did this or that. But glossing it over look, I have a feeling that in America now, the vote isn't taken as seriously as I do. It's a criminal offense to try and cheat the system, but we don't treat it that way. So everybody says, well, you know, we're in the ends justify the means, and if the means they have to cheat, well, so be it. You cannot stop that by just being permissive. And there's always this paradoxical thing. Do I make life hard, unduly hard for 2 out of 10 people? Or do I let 10 guilty men off just so I don't condemn one innocent person? That kind of a question is what I'm trying to drive at. And I think we have many, many protections in our system, so we can start to step up what I would call accountability of the criminals.
So I can say that I don't claim to be an attorney or understand what they do, but I can say that the auditors in Washington State are very close, and we talk about this very often, and we are not consistent from county to county in the way that these cases have been handled.
Have we had any prosecutions in the state of Washington in the last 4
Absolutely.
years?
That's what I'm saying. Absolutely, yes. So from county to county, these cases have been handled differently. And in fact, I know that the Secretary of State's office at one point, this was still under Kim Wyman, at one point, the Secretary of State's office was asking to standardize the rules because of those inconsistencies.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, kind of just echoing with Carolyn. I read a lot of records requests last year about the situation. And the auditor definitely, their office definitely did their due diligence. They collected the information, they passed it along. Even the sheriff's office, they did investigations on all these that I read about. They all got referred to the prosecuting attorney, and our unopposed prosecuting attorney chose to do nothing with any of them. So I just want to echo that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to add that, as you know, commissioners, this office has no authority in these cases, but even in the cases where in the elections office, we're signature verifying and we suspect there's wrongdoing, but we can't prove it, we have what we call naughty letters. We've made up our own template to send to voters saying, this has been challenged and this is why we think it should be challenged. So you need to provide evidence in order for us to cure that challenge. And they typically go unanswered. You know, honestly, sometimes we'll get parents that contact us and they just say, I signed it for my child who's off in college, you know, but a lot of times they just ignore us and don't respond. So we want to make sure in elections, we want them to be on notice that we see you. I don't have any authority, but I see you.
That reminds me that that's another example of how the citizenry or some segment of it just treats it as, oh, well. And you spend, I know because I've toured and lots of people can take the tour, trying to cure ballots, trying to, before I'll squeal on my spouse, she sent the ballot in, hadn't signed it. She got a phone call, took care of it immediately. But if she hadn't done that, there would have been a letter and then another letter, and it just goes on. And it's because mistakes do happen, but we got to treat this more seriously, and we should all keep our eyes open and make sure things aren't broken there. You have a hand up.
I see that. Rhonda, go ahead.
Well, good morning, everybody. I just wanted to kind of reiterate what the previous gentleman at the citizens table had said, there was a group of us that did talk to the prosecuting attorney, and we did ask why these 3 or 4 situations of voter fraud had not been investigated. And he really couldn't give us an answer. He just kind of shrugged his shoulders and gave us the impression, that they weren't really worth the time of looking into them. And of course, my thought is you let 3 or 4 slide, next time there's going to be, 2 or 3 times that many. So that was really disheartening. And so it seems like it's the accountability with that office. There was some of us that took in a large stack of papers with regard to bonds and fraud and turned them into the prosecuting attorney's office, asking for him to take a look, get back to us. Hopefully there would be some investigation done. He never addressed it. I called the office twice after that, and I never even got a phone call in response from him. So that office is really lacking in accountability, and we need to work on finding a new prosecuting attorney. So.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just have a couple questions for Kelly, if I can, is it Carolyn? Carolyn?
Yeah.
Carolyn, are you familiar with Virginia Sjogren's work there? They've had quite a few expert witnesses testify. So can you tell me how many mentally incompetent persons voted in the last election?
I wouldn't begin to know. So when somebody is declared mentally incompetent, a judge declares them mentally incompetent and then revokes their voting privileges. So we don't obviously track that, but when we receive an order, they're removed from the voter rolls. But that's the only time somebody is removed from the voter rolls, when a judge declares them mentally incompetent.
So normally, do you send out several ballots to convalescent homes?
We send out ballots to every registered voter.
So can you tell me how many illegal aliens voted?
Obviously, if I knew that there was an illegal alien registered, I would try to do something about that. So I have none off the top of my head that I would say are registered illegally.
Are you aware that there was a push through the Washington State Department of Licensing to register illegal aliens?
We're starting to put Carolyn on trial here, and I don't want to do that.
No, and I don't.
You can direct to us, and we can get that. It may be better to have a sit down with Carolyn. I don't want to.
Well, I'm not directing this
Let's
as Carolyn. This is what I've asked several auditors across the state, and they have the same question. The problem is the Department of Social Health Services are not working with the auditors to pass that information along.
Okay, that's where it should be then.
And there's problem. It's not the auditor's fault. The auditors are caught up in a catch-22 situation where they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. There's a problem there, and it needs to be investigated because there's public officials. What there's an organized effort by the people in power to stay in power. We have a dictatorship, and there's an organized effort to keep these people in power, and they're members of, it goes deeply rooted in the judicial branches, and we need to take the judicial branches to cite it. A lot of our auditors, like Kelly, are innocent victims. I know that I'm aware that there was problems with the electronic counting deals where they were compromised, and there were people that were coming in at the last minute to modify the electronic counting devices. So there's problems, and the auditors are victims in this situation. I'm not pointing fingers at any one auditor. It's a consensus that I've had speaking to many auditors across the state that they're powerless over it. They know that there was a problem with Eric. There is a serious problem with Eric. There's a problem with this electronic voters count. We got to write this thing, and we got to do it in the proper way. And the proper way is to do a grand jury investigation so that they can follow it to where it needs to go, the investigation. Not to pick on any one auditor or anything. Believe you me, they're as much victims as the rest of us. That's all I'm trying to say, is there's problems.
If I could just make a suggestion, rather than prosecuting for something that you believe to have been wrong, instead change the law so that moving forward, we do it in a way. I understand that you're worried about citizenship, and you're right. In Washington state, there is no method in which county auditors can verify citizenship. We don't have that information. DOL, maybe Department of Justice, they're the only entities that probably have the ability to do something like that. So let's change the law. Since it hasn't been done illegally, it's the law, the way it stands. So you're trying to prove somebody's broken a law it's actually legal. Let's focus on moving in the right direction and changing the law to make sure that there's a process for that in the future. That would be my suggestion.
The problem I see, Carolyn, is we have so many laws that are not being followed. The members of the judicial branch are not followed. We have very, very strong laws in the state of Washington, Class C felonies for people that are violating. And the members of the judicial branch refuse to follow the law. They will only follow it when it's beneficial to them. And that's wrong. We can't create more laws that makes it beneficial to them so that they can weasel out of situations. We need to hold them accountable.
I believe in
Yeah,
accountability. I do believe in accountability, but I'm just saying that when the law isn't in place, you can't hold somebody accountable for something that isn't in place. Right now, there isn't a law.
Yeah, I'd like to say something that's gonna sound strange also. The reason citizenship is required is because the voter presumably has a vested interest in his own, in the country, his own country. But we long ago crossed a path where we accepted citizens can vote on anything, even though there's only upside to them. So many people who don't own rental property want to pass a law that says landlords are constrained, they can't do eviction, they can't do they can't raise the rent and so forth. We have a fundamental moral issue in the country that underpins everything here now. And it was stuff that Tocqueville talked about. It's like, what happens in a democracy when the people realize they can vote themselves the treasury? And that's what we're experiencing, and there are many ways to twist around it. So I'm done. Thank you.
I'm struggling with a process here that hopefully there's a way to address our prosecutor and other elected officials rather than just waiting for the periodic voting process. The same way with our judges. We have very little insight as to how they are really judging, and we don't get much information and help through our judicial system. So anyway, you just pointed out earlier that we have some work sessions coming up for people under your umbrella of responsibility. How do we, or through you, ask for a work session with our county prosecutor, or how do we get a meeting? We've already pointed out several times, meetings with the prosecutor and non-responsibility. So we as individuals are basically worthless in trying to get that done. So are you, the commissioners, capable of setting up a work session whereby we do have community input and questioning?
We have the ability to ask them to do that. I don't know that we have the ability to force, but we certainly have the ability to ask for that.
Okay, well, that's a very important first step in proceeding with elections, is that if the prosecutor will not respond to requests of you through us, the public, then that certainly is at least one nail in the replacement process. Anyway.
I'll say again, the guilty party here is the people at the polls. We're talking about even with election integrity, when the elections are so close that a little fiddling can make a difference. Why don't we show up at the polls and do the right thing in such numbers that it can't be played with?
So let's just make the point that in the last election for our county commissioner, that little bit of difference made a positive change for the right way.
Agreed.
Well, I've seen the Q and A's, not everybody agrees.
Well, that's the trouble with a lot of these things, and that's why I keep on going back to there's a fundamental flaw in just about everything we've talked about. And like the government, it causes the problem, then it creates a Band-Aid to solve the problem, which creates another two problems. And we end up, it's like the government shoots you in the left foot and mandates that you bandage the other foot so tightly that you got gangrene on that foot and you can't walk on your left because you've been shot.
And unfortunately, the majority of them do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other comments? Yes.
It's actually not to you guys, it's to the citizens.
Wait.
It is election week, filing week, and everybody should, especially everyone concerned, should step up and take an office, run for an office. It's fun. Everyone should try it at least once.
Anybody else? Well, once again, thank you for participating. Thank you for being part of the process. I know I say that and I always wonder if people think, oh yeah, he's just blowing smoke, but it really is not. If you know me at all, I appreciate that you partake in the process. You don't always have to agree with me. As I tell people, I'll pray for you and hope you come around, but other than that, you know, just thanks for attending and being part of what we do. We'll adjourn. Thank you.